Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Merkley. I'd like to ask a question from a little different direction, and that is about the economic impact of our transportation infrastructure and the state of our transportation infrastructure. As I see it, the economy turns on transportation infrastructure. This is how people get to work. This is how businesses get their goods to market. And without a transportation infrastructure or a decaying transportation infrastructure, the whole economy is in trouble. So, Dr. Scott, you mentioned the Green Line extension, and I'd like for just a minute to talk about that. This is an extension of the T that would go to one of the most densely populated areas in the country, principally to Somerville, Massachusetts. I was very pleased to see that the president had included $100 million in his FY15 budget in order to get this expansion of the T. But what I'd like to do is start with this question, Dr. Scott. Can you talk about what the lack of basic infrastructure has done to the economy of Somerville? And then we'll talk about the other side.
I would tell you that what it's done is that it's stymied it. Okay, from one standpoint, just let me talk about the jobs portion of it. It's made it much more difficult for people within the Somerville area to, in fact, be able to access good employment opportunities. And so that's both outside as well as development within Somerville. It's made it much more difficult for Somerville to be able to attract employment and business opportunities. Now, what I can say to you is that I just always look at things are what they are. And so just with the knowledge that this project is coming, and we are absolutely committed to this project. Just look at the development that started to take place already. You go, and in fact, we were delighted that Secretary Fox actually took a little time to come through to actually see the project at North Point, okay, right there where we have Leechmere, $2.2 million in terms of development, office, residential, multi-use. At Union Square, another 2 million square feet of development. This is development that absolutely would not be taking place. They're both absolutely right there where the transit is literally at the Union Square. The station is actually right there where the development is. And then you look at what's taking place at places like MaxPac. So the growth and the development that is just being catalyzed, if you will, by that Green Line expansion project are just, it's just absolutely unbelievable.
Well, and I've walked through Curtatone and seen this, and it really is terrific. I was going to ask you the other half, and that is, you know, it's expensive up front to make these investments, and yet study after study shows that when we do, we get enormous economic impact. We get job growth, we get economic development. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for your advocacy on behalf of the Green Line, but also your advocacy on behalf of the whole transit system. Enormously valuable.
Thank you, thank you. But you know, just the American Public Transportation Association at the gross level has done work on this. For every $1 that winds up going into transit, the multiplier effect in terms of at least $4 that wind up coming in terms of what we call that broader impact. And then not just in terms of property values and residential development and all of that, but then looking at it as well in terms of jobs creation. I've seen numbers that have been, for every $1 billion, we're looking at something like about 32,000 to 40,000 jobs that wind up being created. So it is, it's the engine. I always laugh and tell people that it's not the infrastructure, it's actually the outcomes and the benefits that we have for people and communities.
Yeah, and actually let me just extend that over to Dallas, because I've been looking at the studies there as well. You know, you have had amazing growth, gone from zero hard rail to miles and miles of a system in 30 years. And I saw two recent studies by the University of North Texas that estimated that the $4.7 billion spent between 2002 and 2013 to expand light rail in the Dallas system has already generated over $7.4 billion in regional economic activity, including tens of thousands of jobs that paid in excess of $3.3 billion in salaries, wages, and benefits, and made the point also in one of these studies that more than $5.3 billion in private capital transit-oriented development projects have been built or are under construction or are planned near the DART light rail stations. So we're over time, but if Mr. Chairman will indulge me for just a minute, I wanted to give you a chance, Mr. Thomas, to talk about, based on your experience, how capital investment in rail transit can stimulate economic growth, and whether or not your experience in Dallas can be replicated in other places around the country.
You know, it's been fascinating to watch, Senator, what's happened in Dallas, because when we first started, we were focused on getting the rail on the line, obviously, to move people safely, efficiently, and effectively. There were other people that understood the value of that infrastructure, the value that they could take advantage of, quite frankly, and take advantage of in a good way for our community. And once that started, once people started realizing, now as we look to other areas and the expansion, it's certainly to move people. But it's also the air quality opportunities, the congestion mitigation opportunities, and then the economic development opportunities. There was a point in time when the economy got a little soft and we had to start talking about a delay. We literally had buses of people showing up at our board meetings to explain to us why that was not a good idea to delay those projects. And in large part, it was due to not just the transportation, but the economic development opportunities that had already been thought about and already planned. As you mentioned, the study that was recently completed by University of North Texas was an update of a study that had been done previously. And that was a very, very narrowly tailored study, because it only looked at projects that were on the tax rolls. So public funded projects, the big hospital expansion, the new civic center, those weren't even on that list. And so it's pretty incredible to see not only the projects, the economic development, but also the rental rates is part of that study, and it shows the increase in rental rates within a quarter mile of a station. And so we're seeing it over and over, proving out the 4-to-1 benefits that the APTA study has also shown.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Chairman, would it be all right to ask Mr. Casey to weigh in from SEPTA's perspective?
Absolutely.
Mr. Casey?
Yeah, we have a very old system, and unfortunately, the last number of years, we haven't done a lot of expansion. But what we're seeing, a lot of investors wanting to build facilities, whether it's homes, apartment buildings, et cetera, around our stations, and utilizing the benefits of transit for their development, because it makes it much more attractive. But again, there's a lot of interest in us expanding the system. There's this particular project. We have a Broad Street line, one of our heaviest lines, wants to extend into the former Navy Yard, which is attracting companies from all over the place. So there is an expansion, but I just want to say that more and more people in Philadelphia are opting or wanting to take public transit. In the last 15 years, we've had a 50% growth on our regional rail system, 50%. And the only thing really limiting us from even further expansion is capacity. The number of vehicles that we have on the regional rail hasn't increased. Actually has increased a little bit, but it's minor. Those cars are already filled up. But it's parking. If I was able to invest, there's no question in my mind, you would see easily a double-digit growth in the utilization of those services.
Well, I want to thank you all very much. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to say, I think Dr. Scott makes exactly the right point. Transportation infrastructure is powerfully important, but not as an end in itself. It is powerfully important because this is how we help our economy move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.